I've noticed that good movies have a tendency to change the rules at the 50% mark. This is exactly what happens in this movie too. Dizzy kind of decides to bring the worlds together and to try to not leave his friends behind. That happens at the 50% mark. It's not something he just decides at the last minute in the last scene and that is the happy end. He makes that decision, and then the second half is about him trying to make that work. I've just noticed this in a few different movies now. That is how you make a good movie. That is how you don't drag out a premise. That is how you kind of keep things fresh, and that's how you keep things moving. And that's how you make things more satisfying, where you can actually explore like a character's decision because you've got an entire half of a movie to deal with it. Dizzy's attempt to redeem himself takes up like 40% of the movie or something like that. Because of that, I think it's more impactful, and I think that is also one of the reasons why it works. He does not simply have a change of heart in the last 10 minutes and then his friends forgive him and then they hug and then movie's over. Like, he has to actually live with that decision, or has to try to make him work, and we have to watch him make it work. I think that's huge. Yeah. I think that's a big part of why this movie is as compelling as it is.
Throughout, they keep it fresh in terms of like how they build them up. Because even at the start, like one of the criticisms we've had for some previous movies is that they don't show the learnings. They don't show the protagonist kind of overcoming and like slowly becoming who they are, essentially. And like in this movie, some could say it could be played out. I thought it was like kind of like the right amount of time of just kind of like showing him learning how to be the man he wants to be in his new school, and like how to like kind of like dominate and be like top of the food chain and stuff like that, which was like quite interesting. So like I feel like there's like there's that section at the very start, and then you then have like that moment of like him establishing himself as that person in the new school. And like you said, at the 50-60% mark, it's something of that change of like trying to bring the worlds together, and then at the very end it's like, okay, like who really are you? And like you kind of have to like, it's your like past coming back to haunt you, like the very start of the movie. Someone's like kind of like pulling it almost full circle, where the start of the movie come back to haunt him, and he has to like face a demon from the past, and like has to overcome that. So I feel like throughout they show. And then there's so many movies that don't do this, which is so crazy. It's just like a good character growth and character arc in him, where he's just constantly changing, constantly developing. And it's not off a whim. It's because of his experiences, because it's because of what he's going through. And it's okay, like he's been bullied in the school, or he has a situation where he's embarrassed so badly that he feels like he needs to completely like get himself excluded. He can't go back to the school that he's at. And then everything that kind of comes after that is just based on the events that happen in the movie and his experience, as opposed to just a sudden change of heart.
It's building to something, whereas a lot of the character arcs now is very linear, and then you'll see a little hike, but then it'll just go back to kind of like being linear and basic, whereas his one, it's real, if that makes sense, because it's constant internal like conflict within himself, and is presented in the way that he's acting.
It's not like he goes from one to the other instantly. Like, that is something I also see a lot in movies made in the past decade or so, is where a character changes their mind, but you don't see the moment where they change their mind, right? There's no emphasis at all put on them being conflicted and trying to make a decision and then making a decision. They just change from one scene to the next. That is something that drives me crazy, where we never really saw where they made that decision or how they wrestled with that. And like here, that is like the entire journey, right? Dizzy's journey comes in like 5 or 6 different stages, and he's very explicit about where he's at, right? Like what he wants in that moment and to what extent he needs to reconcile his old life and his new life and all of that. But it's gradual, and we know what the turning points are. Like, I think you're right that is something that a lot of character arcs miss, where they go like from 0 to 100 instantly.